So I did some research. The Mutiny Hotel is actually a real hotel. I'm sure you guys knew that because you guys are from Miami. So what kind of research did you do about this hotel? I mean, it was featured supposedly in Scarface. Griselda Blanco frequented this place. So that was the place to be, right? It was like the Studio 54 of Miami.
What was the question? I couldn't even understand the question.
Well, how much did we research the Mutiny Hotel? I mean, do we?
Well,
Yul frequented the hotel,
yeah,
right? Yul was there all the
I
time.
was there constantly.
So my research was really all about, hey, Yul, what was it like being at the
Right.
Mutiny all
And I
the
would
time?
just tell him, oh yeah, I don't remember because I was so out of my mind.
Yeah, which is only proof that he
Yeah,
spent a lot of time there.
exactly. No, the Mutiny was a place. I lived on Miami Beach. It's hard for you to explain this. We're both from Miami. If you're from Miami, you know the Mutiny, unless you're like 20 years old and then you don't know the Mutiny, but you know the Mutiny. My sister went to the Mutiny a lot. So the Mutiny was a famous place because it was in a very nice part of town. It still is called Coconut Grove. That when I was a kid buying records, I would go to the Grove, to the record stores in the Grove. So the Mutiny was a place that we always knew existed. It was kind of a diabolical place, a place of hedonism, and a place that really your parents told you to stay out of. So,
A pleasure palace
yes,
is the word.
a pleasure palace. If you so research, there's quite a few articles written about the mutiny that I've read. I mean, there's no shortage of that. It's fodder for a lot of writing. So we, we'd read some articles and some things, and just being from Miami, we knew a lot of people that went to the mutiny.
And the more stories you hear about that time, it seems like all those stories lead back to the mutiny at some point.
All right, thank you.
Jamie from Starry Constellation.
Hey, Jamie,
Hi guys, good to see you again.
see you
You
too.
love a period piece. This is right after the White House plumbers. Was there something about this role, or maybe the costumes, that drew you to be a part of this one?
Uh yeah, that's interesting. I mean, this one came really honestly. I was working with Chris Brancato and Michael Paynes and Guillermo on Godfather of Harlem, and they were starting to. They had a little pot boiling on the burner that was called Hotel Cocaine, and that was starting to brew, and then that brewed over, and then we had a conversation, and then that's how I came in. But yeah, that's interesting. Well, there's going to be a lot of crossover between some plumber ideas and some hotel cocaine ideas you'll see
Hmm.
later on. But interesting that you caught that.
All right, Paul, your turn.
Hello, guys. How you doing today?
Good, Paul.
Good, Paul.
All right. Well, we're happy to have you on with us. This show is so much fun to watch and such an interesting time. But it goes to some dark places, and of course, it's part of your job. But part of it is putting yourself in that right mindset. Is there something that you kind of tell yourself that keeps you on that right path, even when you're going to these dark places and dark times?
Dan?
Uh, you know, I think when you go to those dark places, it makes it much easier when you look across the desk or across the room and you're able to work with people like Yul Vasquez, because when you're in the scene, it's charged and it's volatile, it's unpredictable. It's, as a performer, it's inspiring, but as soon as you cut, it's hilarious and off the cuff, and there's some outlandish shit being said. And so we have a fantastic time together and we keep it light. So when we do have to go into those, more the darker, more dangerous moments, there's that energy to it.
We really do keep it fun. I mean, that's not even like that's just true.
Yeah.
Like we keep it fun. Um, I'd always wanted to do something substantial with Danny. I had been a guest on his show, Law and Order, and but that was like it was a snack, but I wanted to do something really like this. And
We've had a full meal together
yeah,
now.
well,
It's
we've
a
had
full entree.
we've had
We've
quite a
had quite, yeah, dessert and everything.
yeah. It was Thanksgiving dinner, this one.
Yul Vasquez is delicious. I'll be honest. It's delicious.
No, we've had Danny and I get along very well, and we generally like each other, and we have actually a great time. We have a great time, making this show. Not that it was always easy, because it wasn't, but you know, we admire each other, and we have respect, and we always had fun. So
I feel like it was always easy between the two of us. That it was always very fluid and easy, and we were able to navigate some of the sort of like more difficult moments.
I agree.
Love it. Thank you
Anyway,
guys.
he's delicious.
Wow.
All right, Mavi, you're next.
Hola, hola Dani, Yul, how are you?
Hola, de lo más
Hola.
bien, ¿cómo le va?
Great, bien. Yo sí estoy desde Miami. No
Let's
conozco el hotel. I don't know
go.
the hotel. I'm gonna go. If I find anything
You're
about it,
you're
I'll
in
let you
Miami
know.
right now?
Yes, yes.
So you can
It's
you can actually go to the mutiny right now.
yes. Well, it's been raining a lot here, so it's
I was going to say you could probably
crazy.
take a jet ski to the mutiny.
Yeah, I would
Yes,
take a jet
yes.
ski.
Right.
I don't have a jet ski or a kayak to go there, but
Pero está lloviendo mucho, ¿no?
Sí, pero hoy no ha comenzado a llover, pero it's like London here. It's weird for
Wow.
us. It's not a sun yet. We haven't seen the sun today.
Ten mucho cuidado.
Yeah, we are taking care of ourselves. Thank you, Danny. My question is if maybe more for you because it's what was the inspiration behind this portrayal of a drug mafia leader for you? What was the inspiration for you? Because there's a lot of around going on your life in this matter, right?
In my life,
Yeah, in your work, you've been around a lot of this kind of mafia leaders. What was your
I
inspiration?
have been, yes, I have. But if you actually knew me, you would realize I'm just a knucklehead. You know what I mean? But I do play these mafia sort of leader guys. This, to be honest with you, the personal sort of inspiration for this particular character is and that's something that will be revealed later. My uncle, so our characters in the show were in the Bay of Pigs invasion, and my uncle Raymond was actually in the Bay of Pigs invasion. So that's very personal to me. In fact, my uncle Ray's daughter's coming to the premiere tonight, and she has a son named Yul, but it's a whole other conversation. But so that kind of fueled a lot of this for me. But um, you know, inspiration. I mean, honestly, you do your work, and then I'm inspired by what happens on the day. We would show up on the day, and we really didn't know where it was going to go. We had an idea of where it was going to go, but then we just sort of worked, and that became fun. If that answers your question.
We both separately visited the Bay of Pigs Museum in Little Havana in Miami.
Right, we did. Right.
I think we both knew quite a bit as to what the invasion and the ramifications and what led up to it. But to actually be there and to meet a lot of the men who were involved in it at the museum, I think that was pretty impactful.
Yeah, that was impactful. And while that aspect of it may not be evident early on in the show, and it's definitely in there because that helps fuel something. I think all you need is one thing to hang apart on, and then something like that magnitude can really sort of, propel you through a season or through a character, but
and it's one of those things that unifies our character. Not only
right.
are we brothers, but it also unifies.
Right.
We went through this traumatic experience together.
Right. In fact, there's a scene where somebody disrespects him, calls him the P word, and I say in Spanish to the guy, "You don't know what you're talking about. My brother one of the bravest. He by himself took out a whole one of Castro's battalion on the beach. So it's like if you're listening, if you're listening as an audience member, you catch that and you realize, oh snap, this dude it may not be who we think he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Sci-Fi Vision, you're next.
Hi guys, thanks for talking to us. This is sort of actually continuing on that. You said you play brothers, but can you talk about balancing playing that bond versus their estrangement? Because obviously there's a lot of history there too. It's not just a, happy brotherhood.
Yeah. No, that's a really good question. The bond versus their estrangement, I think it starts with a bond, right? This brotherhood, this blood tie between the two men. And then not only that, their commitment to their homeland, right? To bringing freedom back, to bringing plurality back to Cuba. They're bound by that. And then the biggest irony is that it's because of my daughter, his goddaughter, that we become estranged because he chooses one path that is volatile and dangerous, mixed into the underworld of Miami. And I just want to protect my daughter and have a legitimate career and not put my daughter in jeopardy. And the biggest irony is that I'm manipulated by law enforcement to now put my daughter in the same jeopardy I was trying to avoid. By the way, I love the nebulas.
Oh, thank you. Yul.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Like the polarity between the bond between the characters and their estrangement. Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, what he's the bond is really the initial thing, and then it's like I'm sure you've encountered people in your life. You have a connection, you have a strong connection, or a family bond, a blood bond, and then whatever you go your own ways, but then you come around. The thing is, I think in life, people come in and out of our lives for various reasons. Just all of us. You know what I mean? And sometimes you have chosen family, and sometimes you have actual family. So we are thrust together because of an unfortunate situation that he is put in. But that turns out to backfire. And the brothers become tight again, and even in the scene where even in the estrangement, when I see my brother, I know what he's capable of. When I know, I'm sure you've seen it, but when I hand him the gun, it's like I know who he is. The audience may not know who he is, but I know who this guy is. You know what I mean? And he knows who I am.
Yeah. And I also feel like there's something that's unsaid between the two characters, is that perhaps Roman is really trying to avoid Nestor and keeping him out of his life. But I think there's something about bringing Nestor back into his life that he actually wants. He misses his brother. He wants his brother back in his life. I think in those empty voids in your day, when you're not really thinking of much, it's Nestor who's on his mind. He's worried about him. He hopes he's okay. He wishes he could do more to be, in his world. And this is just an excuse to finally, be able to say that he's in that orbit again. So there's a little bit of that sort of a moth to a flame, that blood tie that actually is satisfying to Roman.
Do you think that they kind of view success differently than maybe the other does? Because they both started out with nothing and now they've found success in their own way. But do you think that maybe they view success differently than the other does?
Well, that's a good question.
Man?
I think I don't want to speak, for Nestor or for Yul.
Oh, please do.
Okay, so I will. I feel like their goals in life are similar. I think, a free Cuba is something that they were going to give their lives for, that they were willing to give their lives for, and many did. who were in their own battalion. Uh, I think having Valeria, having his daughter, Roman's daughter, has changed the hierarchy of what is important and valuable to him. Not that Cuba is no longer important, but Valeria takes precedent over that. And that has become his focus. Whereas for Nestor, he's still very much, he has not let go of that torch of wanting to, you know, be living back in his country. And that's one of the things that separates Cubans, I think, from a lot of other nationalities is that um, we consider ourselves, and our grandparents and our parents consider themselves exiles, not immigrants. And so they were never looking north, right? All Cubans came to Miami looking south, back to Cuba. They never thought that they would be spending 65 years in the United States. This was not the end goal. The end goal was to return to Cuba.
Correct.
And so Nestor's sort of the embodiment of that. He's putting everything he has into we're going to change the circumstances in our homeland, right? So they diverged. And so I think the answer to your question is that, you know, two people of the same mind for so many years become they start to part ways when their goals and what they want to achieve are different. And so that I think that's what you see between the two brothers. They're empathetic, and they sympathize with where each, and they understand what their goals are. And because of that, I think it's a loving, supporting relationship. But I think there's also there's a barrier there that can't be that is really difficult to overcome, because how do you turn your back on your daughter, but also how do you turn your back on your homeland, right? So that polarity is really strong.
It might be hard to understand for many people that Cubans thought they were going back. I know that's a difficult thing to comprehend if you don't understand what the Cuban diaspora and what that whole thing was. Imagine coming with your young children and thinking, don't get too comfortable because soon we're going back. We're going back to our country, and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and 65 years passes and you're still waiting. That psychologically, what that does to the parent, which is of course passed on to the child, is an unbelievable thing. And I know it's hard to understand that, but that's part of this. That's part of the show. It's part of the story. And that was the conversations at dinner, even to this day, not so much because a lot of the new generation is more interested in other things, but dinner conversations were about Cuba and the situation, and we're going back. So,
I mean, this show, obviously, from the title, Hotel Cocaine, it can be sort of baked into two very simple words. However, there's geopolitics involved. It's the backdrop of a very dangerous Cold War uh, between the United States and Russia, and Cubans and Cuban Americans were the proxies for that war. And so that volatility it runs throughout our show.
yeah, yeah, and runs through this location that he runs. All those roads are coming through that hotel. The intelligence community, the drug community, bankers, money launderers, all that is running through there. And Danny's 100% right. You can look at it as Hotel Cocaine and go, okay, but if you look at it as a location where all this world is happening, these conversations are all part of that world.
And I think it's incredibly appropriate that I see a poster of Casablanca in the background, because it really is. It's Rick's Cafe. But instead of being in Casablanca, you're in Coconut Grove in Miami, and instead of it being World War II, you can say it's a war on drugs, or you can say it's the Cold War.
Yeah.
And all roads go through our version of Rick's Cafe in the Mutiny.
Right.